Recording is in progress. Friday, June 14th at 9 a.m. Welcome. First up, I'd like to introduce our new staff, Arts Commission staff that we have. And I was told there was a slide with names, so I didn't have to memorize them. And if you could just introduce yourself to the group when I call on you and give us a little bit about where you've come from and what you'll be doing at the Arts Commission. We'll start with Austin, who is we've all heard from.
You get so many emails from me. That's my priority. Hi, I'm Austin Hendricks. I am originally from Marion, Indiana. I just moved here though from Kansas City. Worked for 3 years there, but had a long career doing professional theater for backstage work. And now I'm taking over the administrative assistant role from Stephanie Fendler. So you will be getting all of the things that she did, but now for me.
Wonderful, thank you. Gwendolyn.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Gwendolyn Pickett. I'm originally from Indianapolis. I was a student at Bloomington. I got some experience in government and entertainment journalism and public relations. So I'll be doing communications here at the NBC.
Wonderful, thank you. Victory is
Victory is confused on campus, but he'll be over here in just a
Okay,
minute.
awesome. That happened. Victory Sampson with an awesome name is one of our seniors.
Victor is actually a current Butler student, double majoring in psychology and communication.
There he is.
And yes, he's
There he is.
down the hallway.
We've spoken him into existence. Brennan.
All right, hi everyone, I'm Bryn. I am the communications intern this summer. I am going into my senior year at IU studying arts major.
Wonderful, welcome. Good morning, Victory. We were just talking about you, so.
In a great way.
It happens. Do not worry. We have a special guest joining us today. I wanted to welcome Senator Greg Good. I have worked with Greg in we've all had different jobs through the years, but you are a special friend of the Arts Commission because you carried the Poet Laureate legislation for us. When Maya and I met last fall and we're trying to strategize who could be successful with this. And I was like, I got the guy. And you really, we were so grateful for the work that you did on that. I think it was your first piece of legislation.
Was my very first. Yes.
Welcome. And if
Thank
you want to like to say a few words for us, give us some wisdom
Sure.
from your perspective.
Well, thank you. Hello, everyone. My name's Greg Good, and my day job for the last year and a half, I serve as state director for United States Senator Todd Young. And so I've had the opportunity to probably be at some point in your communities and down the road as I'm traveling around the state, would love to maybe grab coffee individually with everyone. Prior to that, I spent most of my life and career as a university administrator, spent about a dozen years working for Indiana State University, along with this fine individual here to my right. And then somewhat abruptly, in October of last year, there was an opening in the Senate District 38 when State Senator John Ford, who also did big, of course, fan and believer in this entity, stepped down for professional opportunities. And so these two folks took a chance on a lowly backbencher freshman to carry some legislation, and you just never know in life. You know, I had no idea this would be the first, but it was such an honor because especially I got to work with Maya, who is truly the coolest individual in state government. And
Okay, I'm not cool.
Maya is totally right.
Yes. The arts bring people together, and we need that more than anything right now, in our society and our political environment. And I have seen firsthand the immense return that our Arts Commission provides with the pretty modest investment. And as long as I have the privilege of being in the state legislature, I'll be your ally, a champion. I'll do everything I can to uplift the work that you're doing and seeing if we can find additional investment to carry out the work that you're doing. So thank you. And I look forward to truly getting to know everyone individually down the road, and it's great to be here. Thank you.
And we'll see you at our next, when we're in Terre Haute, hopefully.
coming,
And-
right?
Yeah,
Yes.
we're coming in September, so thank you for that, and we will, in fact, Dave and I were just talking about how we'll need an advocate in there in the next, with the new administration coming in,
Sure,
so we
yeah.
look forward to further conversations on all of that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Before we do roll call, I do want to make an announcement. We will be voting on our budget, and as is the case every year when we do this, while we are able to have commissioners join us virtually for our meeting, when it comes to voting on the budget, that's the one item where virtual attendees, virtual commissioners cannot vote on the budget. It'll be just the folks that are in the room. That's required by state law. So just wanted to make that note, and will be reflected in our meeting minutes. So next up, I'll let Austin take roll call.
We'll start with members present in the room. Azizi Arlington Slocum,
Present, Region 6.
Raina Bradley,
I am here, Region 3.
Chad Bolser,
Present, Region 5.
Dave Heist,
Dave Heist, Chair.
Greg Hull,
Oh, here, Region 7.
Mark Maxwell,
Region 12, and I am right here. Thank you.
Jake Oakman,
Here.
Kelsey Pieper,
Present, Region 7.
Renee Thomas,
Present.
Ann Penny Valentine,
Present.
Scott Wiley.
Present, I think I'm 10.
Move on to members at our Zoom room. Lori Burns McRobbie.
Present, Region 8.
All right, moving on to IAC staff. Jordan Adams,
Jordan Adams, Artist Services Program Manager.
Eric Ashby,
Eric Ashby, Grants and Research Management.
Connie Braun,
Connie Braun, Marketing and Communications Director.
Stephanie Haynes,
Stephanie Haynes, Arts Education and Accessibility Program Manager.
Maya Michelson,
Maya Michelson, Executive Director.
Bryn Patrick,
Bryn Patrick, Communications Director.
Lee Fendler,
Stephanie Schindler, Financial Operations Manager.
Gwendolyn Pickett,
Gwendolyn Pickett, Communications Manager.
Victory Sampson,
Victory Sampson, Program Sampson.
Paige Sharp,
Paige Sharp, Deputy Director, Programs.
Andre Jang Sanera.
Morning, everyone. I'm Zeng Sinera, Deputy Director of Operations.
Madam Chair, that is everyone present.
Wonderful, thank you. Next up, we have the approval of our agenda and our March 8th, 2024 meeting minutes. Does anyone have any changes or corrections to the agenda or the meeting minutes? I will entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
In a second.
Second.
All, do we need a roll? We do. Okay, well, I'll let Austin take the roll.
Azizi,
Aye.
Raina,
Aye.
Chad,
Aye.
Dave,
Aye.
Greg,
Aye.
Mark,
Aye.
Jake,
Aye.
Kelsey,
Aye.
Renee,
Aye.
Ann,
Aye.
Scott,
Aye.
Lori.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. Next up is our consent agenda. I will read through the items on our consent agenda. Submitted for approval, the fiscal year 2024 year-to-date financials. Also for approval, the delegation of contract signing authority to the executive director. The reports for review. The Arts Trust report, the communications report, the Governor's Arts Awards, staff updates and activity report, external partnership update, every county funded update, creative convergence update, lifelong arts update, cultural district update, and fiscal year 25 committee assignments. Is there any commissioner who would like to move an item from the consent agenda to the full agenda? Hearing none, I will entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda. So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Austin, will you call the roll, please?
Absolutely, Azizi,
Aye.
Raina,
Aye.
Chad,
Aye.
Dave,
Aye.
Greg,
Aye.
Mark,
Aye.
Jake,
Aye.
Kelsey,
Aye.
Renee,
Aye.
Ann,
Aye.
Scott,
Aye.
Lori.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. Next up, committee reports. I can stop talking. Committee on the Future. Andre, first up, the fiscal year 25 Cultural Trust Draw.
Absolutely. Thank you, Madam Chair. So as we all know, the the fiscal art trust report, the withdraw request, this is an information that we do for the sales of the licensed trust plates that we see through our partnership with BNB. And that information from the Eastern Marion account that we receive from that account is what we're able then to access the funds for these projects. We're going to be requesting for fiscal year 25 for arts project support, $123,000 to $814. the draw request. Again, this is going to be utilized to augment the additional amount of APS projects that have been incurred to support the full amount and help support the full amount of $4,000 that are included with the APS project. Any questions with the APS project for the trust report, sorry?
I'll just add, we did discuss this in the committee and in exec. This is, this is what the plate is for, to raise money so that we can invest in the arts. It's larger than we have done typically, but also the number of arts project requests is a lot more than we've had before. So I think this is a great use of that. As I said to the staff, do we need to take more? But this was the recommendation, and I think it's the right amount. And I will entertain a motion to approve this request.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you.
We have a motion and a second. Austin, will you call the roll?
Absolutely. Azizi,
Aye.
Brianna,
Aye.
Chad,
Aye.
Dave,
Aye.
Greg,
Aye.
Mark,
Aye.
Jake,
Aye.
Kelsey,
Aye.
Renee,
Aye.
Ann,
Aye.
Scott,
Aye.
Lori.
Aye.
Excellent. Next up, fiscal year 2025 budget.
So thank you again, Madam Chair. So I came to you guys on the March QBM and showed to you all the proposed budget. Now we have the final numbers both from the state and the NEA. So just to go really recap of what State Budget 101 is, our state budget runs from July 1st to June 30th of fiscal year. In the fall year of an even year, the agency submits a proposed budget to the governor's office for review. This is our biennial budget. At the beginning of an odd year, so next year in 2025, the Indiana General Assembly, Senator Good and his colleagues are going to review and consider the proposed budget for the governors in the long session. And around April of that year, we get then our approved budget from the General Assembly, which becomes the foundation of our biennial budget. So a little bit more recap on that. There's 9 accounting categories for the budget. So we got point 1, which is personal services. So that includes paycheck, health insurance. Point 2, utility subscription, cell phone, IT, etc. Point 3 are professional services and contract. Point 4, materials. Point 5, capital equipment and equipment, that's AV equipment and IT accessories. Point 6, we do not use distribution for local government. Point 7, our big chunk of our budget is our grants and programs for individual artists and organizations. Point 8, we don't utilize that as those are indirect support, such as SNAP, Cal Welfare and Rent Assistance, and then point 9, administrative expenses, which includes HR, travel expenditures, and whatnot. So a little bit more from our federal funding. Federal government budget runs from October 1st to September 30th, the fiscal year. We receive funding from the National Endowment for the Arts. We submit a yearly application to the NEA on September. We provide a notification from the NEA in April on how much we're going to get. We then work with a state budget agency to set up a for accounting. And then funds are available for us to utilize starting at the beginning of the fiscal year. Questions so far? So looking at our revenue for FY25 or proposed budget, comparing it to the 22-23 biennial budget, our point 1, there's a 24% increase. Operations and programs, 46% increase. That includes again everything from point 2 to point 9. And then we just heard back from SBA, State Budget Agency, that we're going to get a 2% budget holdback, management holdback, and they do this again to keep the reserves healthy for the state and making sure that we have a good credit status. For the federal allocation, it's only a 0.4%. That's only $5,000 extra that we get additional this year. That $5,000 been allocated for Poetry Out Loud. So here's a view of the revenue at a glance. Also want to point out over here, that's including again the draw trust that you guys just approved. Expenditures assumption, again, things that we want to do again for this fiscal year is support more grant funding and more program funding, and also new program services. And again, this is due to the work that Jordan and Eric have been doing with the artists and success so that we can utilize properly more investment for artists in our communities. So here's a look at the proposed expenditures by point. Point 1 compared to the fiscal year 24 to fiscal year 25. Point 2, services personnel. Moving forward, a little bit harder to see, but it's on your package. Point 3 are professional services. Point 4, materials, and point 5 with equipment. They roughly the same. Point 7 are grants. And again, highlighting that bigger chunk over here on what we did with the Arts Trust. Point 9 HR and administrative support. And here is a view of expenditures out of lines. Questions so far? Yes, sir.
Under the categories where we do not have monies allocated for FY 25, there are two different colors, purple and orange. Is there any
Yeah.
meaning to that?
Absolutely. So those were partnerships that we did with IDOE, the Department of
Okay.
Education.
I didn't know if there was a difference between orange and purple.
Yeah, absolutely. So those, I'm not counting those in this year because we have not moved with those partnerships forward right now at the moment. So that's why they're not included in the budget. But I still want to make sure that we are making note of it since we actually utilize funds in 2025. Perfect. Any other questions? Okay, so what's next? We are working hard and steadily right now with SBA closing the fiscal year for 2024. As I mentioned earlier, fiscal year 25 starts on July 1st, and then Maya and I are working in planning the biennial budget request for the governor's office, which is due on August 26th. So with that, if there's any question, Madam Chair, I request that for approval.
Any questions or discussion? Okay, great. I will entertain a motion to approve the fiscal year 2025 budget.
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second. I'll remind you, we're only going to be doing a roll call of the commissioners present in the room. If you will do that roll call, Austin.
Azizi,
Aye.
Raina,
Aye.
Chad,
Aye.
Dave,
Aye.
Greg,
Aye.
Mark,
Aye.
Jake,
Aye.
Kelsey,
Hi.
Renee,
Aye.
Ann,
Aye.
Scott.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you.
I do want to say a couple of things about budget. First, Andre mentioned the question about the orange and the purple, right? What do they mean? We have active partnerships with both Department of Education and FSSA, and we anticipate there will be potential opportunity for additional funding partnerships with both of those entities. And when those occur, you'll see those reflected in current and then sort of the next iteration of the budget is moving. So just want to be clear about that. It's not reflected right now because we're kind of still working with current numbers. Second thing to note is we will be asking for a budget increase for the FY 26-27 biennial. It will be focused primarily around organizational and project support. The growth we're seeing is phenomenal and exciting. And we need to be ready to meet it. Again, we're responding to community demand for our services and our budget request needs to reflect that. So we're working internally, doing some case making. Luckily, all the data work that Eric and the programs team and Andre are doing and the work that the communications team has been doing around case making is putting us in a good position there, but we'll be making a request for additional support. And obviously we have the data to support that. So more to come. I'll be by the next time we get together, I'll have obviously we'll know what we're doing exactly, and I'll be able to share that with you. But because we've got a great case. I just want to make sure.
I know that you're just planning, but have you kind of thought through like what the percent, like what your percentage is?
Yes,
Are you
yeah.
in?
Yeah.
You don't need to.
No,
I
yeah.
don't want to ask
Yeah.
like how much. But you have like.
Yes,
you-
I have,
you're-
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Conceptually.
Yeah, we've got a number.
A frame.
And again, it's based on the demand that we're seeing that we can't support. So it's driven with numbers that we've got, right, based on what we can't fund and what we know is out there that if we were to widen the aperture only the slightest bit, that we would, again. We are just doing what we usually do related to promoting our programs. We are not doing an extraordinary push, come to us. And we're still seeing extraordinary growth. If we were to really step out in a big way related to promotion and information sharing around the opportunities, we would absolutely not be able to handle it. So just organic growth, which is fantastic. Again, the state's investment in quality of place, quality of life, how they're talking about that through the READY program and other places is bearing fruit. And we are reaping that interest and motivation to bring arts opportunities into places, in particular small places. And that we want to see that. That is absolutely what the governor's office wants to see. We just need to be able to respond to that in a way that's meaningful. So, right, yeah.
Thank you.
That's all right.
No.
I want to say that, yeah.
Great, great. Okay. Thank you, Andre. Next up, Eric is going to talk us through the strategic framework baseline for key performance indicators. I think last meeting, you gave us sort of what those KPIs were going to be, and this is the next step of that process.
Exactly, that is it. Thank you so much. Last time we were here, we talked through the key performance indicators, and now I'm coming back to you with some specific goals related to how we want to meet those and measure those over the next fiscal year. And so there's a couple terminology things. One is baseline. That's the performance we've seen through our grant programs or other data we have as of May of 2024. And I'll note in here sort of what timeline it covers. And then the target is the goal by the end of the next fiscal year. And the data that we're using comes from our grants data and other publicly available sources for that information. And this is all used to benchmark progress toward our strategic framework impacts. So our first strategic framework impact in every Indiana county and people and communities have access to all the experiences. First thing we're looking at is number of counties directly supported. Right now, we're about 81 out of 92. And this is where we have direct grant dollars going into that county. And of course, with every county funded in Creative Convergence and adding Lydia's role, we're looking to get to all 92, which I'm happy to say we're on the right path of doing so far. And we haven't even crossed the threshold into FY25 yet. So super exciting stuff happening there. And then outside of direct support, we're also looking at the activities. These are programs or events that might be happening. Some organizations have a multi-county service area, and so they might be doing things in other places. And so for this, we looked at the average number of activities that are happening in all the counties, which comes out to about 8 in FY23. So we'd like to try to get all of our counties to at least 8 arts activities that are connected to our programs or services in some way. And the last one is accessibility focused projects, and accessibility goes beyond physical accessibility in the sense of thinking sensory friendly, other things related to that. And this is a program that tentatively is coming down the line in FY26 to support accessibility related renovations, trainings, other projects that organizations may have related to accessibility. So more to come on that down the line. Impact 2 is new populations of Hoosiers experience meaningful learning in and engagement with arts and creativity. First measure here is number of first-time grantees. This is really only tracked currently consistently with our operating support and project support, which right now sits at about 28% of the grantees in FY24, about 150. And we're looking to get to 35%, which we are off to a good start because as you'll see here later, the Arts Project Support Program had a lot of new folks in the pool this year with record application numbers. So starting to reach a lot of new organizations and community groups. A big part of that is the Regional Arts Partnership doing a lot of work on that front too. So really excited about that. Second one is number of grantees in total grant dollars by type and discipline. So these disciplines are prescribed by the National Endowment for the Arts. And so we track these across all of our granting. And you'll see there that that second one, that first high bar you see is music. The second high bar you see is theater, visual arts, and then we have a big multidisciplinary bar. Some of these other categories, it's a little bit misleading because multidisciplinary is just that, includes multiple disciplines. And so a lot of those organizations that are in that multidisciplinary category may be doing things in a lot of those other categories as well. So it's a little hard to necessarily piece out all the time. But when we look at our peers with similar budget sizes to us, our peers are in that first column and we are in the second column, and we're tracking pretty closely. There's a little bit of discrepancy with performing arts and multidisciplinary, but our target is to make sure we maintain a mixture of disciplines in our grant programming and in our grantees in alignment with the national trends and standards with our peer agencies that have similar investment numbers. And this data comes from NASA, the NASA with 2 A's, not the space people. Agencies. Okay, and still on impact 2 here on the third one, primary population benefited, looking at who is benefiting from our grant investments. Here is a breakdown of percentage of grants by rural and metro. The orange line is rural and the blue line is metro, and this is across the fiscal years. Right now, about 25% of grants are going to rural counties and 22% of grant dollars are going to rural counties. And we delineate rural and metro by county in our work. And if you break down the state, rural versus metro county wise, 20% is about where that lands. So we're tracking with the percentage of population that live in rural counties in Indiana. We want to make sure we are staying consistent with that. And so our target for FY25 is to have 30% of grants going to rural counties with 25% of grant dollars going to rural. Making sure we're reaching some of those areas that don't necessarily have access to other resources to support some of their arts and creativity work. Second thing here is percentage of projects by distinct groups served. This is another NEA question. I know it's a little bit blurry here. So the different groups are individuals below the poverty line, youth at risk, individuals with disabilities, individuals with limited English proficiency, military or active service, and individuals in institutions, things like senior living facilities or incarcerated population. And these are again prescribed by the NEA. We don't make up these categories for ourselves. We're required to ask this question, federally required to ask this question in all of our grant programs. And right now, we see about a 60-40 split between projects that are serving one of those distinct groups and projects that don't serve a distinct group. And that's how the question is phrased. And you can only select a distinct group if 25% or more of your direct beneficiaries belong to one of those groups. So again, this is another slightly misleading graph in the sense that some organizations might be serving all of these groups, but they don't make up 25% of their direct beneficiaries. So they're selecting no. So it's a little bit federal requirements. So our target though is to make sure that we are seeing projects serving some of those distinct groups and some of those underserved groups to get to more of a 50-50 balance with projects that are serving a distinct group and projects that are not serving a distinct group. So we want to see some growth in some of those areas. And then this last one here related to the population served by the grant dollars, and this is another blurry one. This breaks down the percentage of our grant dollars by census tract and the poverty levels in the census tracts in Indiana. And so right now, where we're at is we have 54% of grant dollars going to the highest poverty census tracts in Indiana, which is a really positive sign that we're getting investment into areas that may not have access to other resources or other programming. So we want to make sure that we're continuing to do that and keeping an eye and tracking this. And so our target is to maintain a higher percentage of grant dollars going to the highest poverty census tracts than the percentage of the total population living in those census tracts. Okay, any questions on any of that? On to the next impact Indiana's artists build toward glory. Did you have a question? I saw a hand, maybe.
Yeah, I do. This new Zoom interface, I'm like, what happened to the raising your hand? It took me, anyway, sorry. Yeah, I wanted to understand a little better the distribution across rural areas vis-a-vis the comments, Maya, you were making earlier about responding to demand and how much we wanted to go out and promote. And you may have addressed this and I just kind of missed it. It's certainly been something we've talked about, but to what degree do we still need to think about promoting in the sense of getting the word out and supporting, really looking for ways to support fledgling organizations in parts of the state that have been historically unseen by the Arts Commission, if you follow what I'm saying. I guess it's a sort of nuanced question about whether the demand we're seeing, I guess I'll ask it like this, if the demand we're seeing maps to the way the rural-urban divide works in the state. Are we seeing demand coming from rural areas the way we see it from urban?
That's a great question, and Maya, feel free to jump in at any time. I think more of the demand in APS this year came from urban areas, although there was an increase in rural communities. And I think some of the really small fledgling organizations are also intersecting with different programs that aren't necessarily our AOS or APS programs, whether that's Every County funded or the Creative Convergence programs, which has tailored outreach attached to it. And so it's not necessarily sort of an open call as much as a tailored call through community connections and resources with the RAPs and doing things with the municipalities to find folks and invite them into the fold at the right access point in our programming. So they're not put into an application that doesn't set them up for success and sustainability. So I think we've been looking at sort of tailored recruitment in that sense.
Yeah.
That tracking.
Yeah, and I would also say that Stephanie Haynes's Creative Aging Program is unlocking new grantees, especially small rural libraries in particular. So to Eric's point, it may not be through our core programs, it may be through other avenues, at least initially. And we found so far that that's a pretty good strategy to meet a specific community need and then develop a relationship and then bring them into a core program down the line. So, yeah. Is that helpful, Lori?
Yes, very helpful. Thank you.
Okay. So impact 3, Indiana artists build towards successful careers in our state. First, the dollars invested in the individual artists. They were about $186,000 invested in individual artists between on-ramp and some of the creative aging work and the education work. And for the next fiscal year, tracking for hopefully around $250,000, and some of that will become more clear as we're talking about some of the plans. Second one is total investment in artist entrepreneurship from Arts Commission partners. Right now, that's to be determined. We're going to be doing some upcoming research in the next fiscal year to figure out what the arts funding landscape looks like throughout the state, not just in the nonprofit space, but across the different areas, to figure out where there might be gaps in areas that we can further support. And so we're hoping that to reach around $250,000 through partners like the IEDC and Pattern and other folks that are doing this work in the creative economy space. And the last one is hours of technical assistance delivered to artists. The IAC staff, especially Jordan and Stephanie, work a lot one-on-one with artists all over the state to help them develop their applications and further their careers. And that's not something we've historically sort of tracked and translated into an investment that we are making, but it is an investment of time, which is also money. And so we are looking to pilot tracking those numbers, and then depending on staff feedback and burden on staff to get this tracked, we will adjust from there. But looking at about 100 hours, which is about a couple hours every year. Impact 4, Indiana's arts providers have expanded opportunities to enhance the quality of life in their communities. Looking at dollars leveraged beyond the grant award. So this is income in the budget beyond the grant award. And in FY23, that was 3.2 million across all of our grant programs. In FY24, that was 3.3. So keeping with this sort of a steady increase, and also things are more expensive. So people need to fucking come in their budget to cover stuff too. Looking at our targeting around 3.5 million. But what this also tells us is that the community and they're finding other supports to invest in their arts projects. There's community buy-in to bring in more revenue for these projects. And so it's a good sign to see those figures increasing. Second one is number of sustained creative aging projects, which is not currently tracked, but as some of our creative aging programs finish for the first time, we're hoping that some of the women who are doing with creative aging will seed in organizations and that they'll continue that work and continue to mentor other organizations in that work. And so we're going to be following up with the folks that are in that program to find out what things have stuck for them. I'm hoping that we'll have around 25 projects that will continue on beyond the lifetime of the specific grant period. And the last one is a universal health survey on creative aging. And this is a partnership with the University of Indianapolis Creative Aging Center there, or Center on Aging and Community. And they've been doing a ton of work with our lifelong arts programming to really understand the well-being impacts for older adults. And for the beginning of 2025, we'll have some really wonderful, robust data to come to you with that will talk. This is universal health survey that's used all over the country. That's sort of a quick diagnostic of how are you right now. And we'll have pre and post information on all of that, which will be really helpful in understanding the impact of creative aging on older adults. And then impact 5, there's broad recognition of arts and creativity's value for Indiana. First one, dollars invested in arts and creativity outside of IAC programs. This is another one that is deeply connected to the FY25 research about understanding the funding landscape in Indiana and where there are gaps. Second one is number of non-arts organization or artist grantees. These are folks that usually are in our arts project support program. And in FY 23 we had 95, FY 24, 119, and we're targeting about 175 across our programs for the next year. And I should also note, Creative Convergence also usually falls in this category. There's a lot of municipalities and cities that are in that program as well, that are your sort of standard arts organizations. So this is great because it speaks to broad recognition of arts and creativity's value across different fields and different industries. And the last one is per capita funding compared to peers. So this is the investment from the Indiana General Assembly divided by the population in Indiana, which roughly gives you investment per person in Indiana. And of course, that's a certain amount of this that we can control as the Arts Commission, but it's great to have wonderful allies like Senator Good here to help advocate on behalf of the work that we do. And so hopefully, fingers crossed, we'll get up to $1 per capita in our budget for the next year. And so that is the KPIs and the targets. We are going to establish some internal standard operating procedures to make sure we're tracking these, and we'll be coming back to you every quarter with the information that we have ready to go to present to you. And our big final report deadline for project support and operating support is in July most years. And so the QBM following July will have a lot of information on some of these things that'll give us a clearer picture of where we're at. So really excited to continue talking about this with you all, and welcome any questions or other.
Good work.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Good job. Next up, programs, grants and services. Oh, you're back with us. Fiscal year 25 APS data presentation. We're not done yet.
Y'all are really gonna be tired of me by the
Nope.
time here. Lot of numbers, a data day keeps the doctor. APS, a couple changes this year. First one was lowering the maximum.
Eric, if you would, remind folks what APS
Yes,
is.
absolutely.
With funds.
Support. And this funds nonprofits of any sort, units of government and educational institutions for arts projects that follow the FY 25 fiscal year, July 1 to June 30. And there's a wide array of projects that get proposed. We'll talk to what that looks like. In previous years, the maximum request had been 5,000. We lowered it to 4,000, but committed to funding everyone at the full request amount, which hadn't been done in previous years. All grant awards are going to be paid in one payment, not two payments. Brian's like, yes, thank goodness. It saves a little administrative burden across the board and gives our project support grantees all that money upfront to do their great work. And secondly, fourthly, we implemented funding framework to aid in the funding recommendations this year, which helped expedite the process and made it sort of based on county, which helped increase the reach of the program. And then we moved panel meetings onto a Zoom webinar format and did not record them this year and received some positive feedback on how the panels went, and everyone seemed to think that went pretty smoothly. And then we also a specific Marion County requirement to direct projects to Marion County residents with facilities.
And in case anyone doesn't remember, we approved all of these.
Yeah. This is-
So, this isn't like us learning. All said yes to the.
Thank you.
The public record.
We were approved, and I'm just providing the reminder before we.
Thank you.
Okay, so here we go. We had 21 panels and 120 plus panelists from the community review our project support applications all in 2 weeks. And Ryan is still here showing up to this meeting even after all of that. And we had 322 applications this year, which is a record number of arts project support applications, I think, ever for us. And that was a 37% increase from last year. So a lot of demand for the program. We've had 71 out of 92 counties that applied, so 77% of Indiana counties applied in the program. And this was an 11% increase from FY 24, so reaching some new counties this year, which is really exciting to see. We had 115 new applicants, 36% of there, and that was a 2% increase from last fiscal year. Proportionally, and then 95 applications from Will County, which was a 19 application increase. So seeing upward trends across all the areas. Here we go, here's the applications, number of applications by fiscal year, you can see that's sort of been steadily trending up since FY 22, and we expect will continue to do so. Here is the breakdown of volume of applications by county. Without surprise here, a ton coming from Marion County in the center of the state, and a good bit coming up in the northwest corner up by Gary, and then some in Allen County where Fort Wayne is. Those are some of the hot spots for applications. Here is the APS applicants broken down by organization type. Most are nonprofits, but we do see a smattering of government in there, which is always great to see. A lot of small cities and towns in the position. Okay, so there is a section of what's explaining some of the increase in applications is one piece is arts organization support being an off year. Some of those arts organizations have filtered into this program. 21 of those were applicants this year. So a piece of that is driven by arts organizations that don't have the 2-year operating support. However, I think in future years, we can find some other options of supporting them that may not be project support, so we can ensure this program remains open to more folks that might not have other options for finding funding for arts projects. And then the other thing that we see in arts project support is 118 or so arts organizations that are in the pool. So these are not the AOS, not funded folks. These are just arts organizations that are applying for project support that didn't apply for AOS. And that represents about 37% of the applicant pool. And there are many of these organizations that actually would be eligible for our operating support. And so that's something we're going to be working on with the RAPs and with staff to do some work to move those people into that program as much as possible if they are eligible. And so the next steps are to work with regional partners to do just that for the next operating. Okay, here are the applicants by budget size. Applicants are asked to submit a profit launch statement with the application, and so that's where these numbers come from. I just wanted to highlight 2 things for you. One is that there are a ton of organizations with a total budget, like organizational budget of $20,000 to $50,000. So that means no full-time staff, mostly volunteer run. Capacity will be what it will be for a budget of that size. So just want to call your attention. There's a fair number of applicants that's where they are. And then there's some that are much bigger than that are applying for a $4,000 grant. So just keep that in mind as you look. Here are the applicants by institution type. These were the top 10. There's a variety of institution types, but these were the most common ones. Fair number of universities this year and a lot of community service organizations. So that speaks to this program's reach to non-arts organizations. Okay, here's the funding framework. Here's how it worked. Funding was distributed by county using the following logic. There were 3 rounds where the highest scoring eligible applications in each county were funded in those first 3 rounds. And then the 4th round was competitive amongst all the applications that were left in. And here we're moving into the recommendations. So these are numbers on recommendations that we're presenting to you today. A 16% increase in total APS funding to offset that 37% increase in applications is what we're proposing, and that is coming from the Arts Trust draw. So we're trying to backfill some of this program to help account for some of the demand. 70% of organizations are recommended for funding, which is a 14% decrease from last year. But as we'll see in a moment, it's not a far off reach from what has happened in some previous fiscal years in terms of percent recommended. 34% of grantees are in rural counties, which is tracking with FY 24, a 1% decrease. 32% of recommended are first-time APS applicants, which is a 2% decrease from FY 24. The average award went up by $37. That with the award amount moving down to 4,000, people got 4,000 last year, so there's really not much change happening there. And then 68 counties funded, which is a 5-county. So I think the takeaway from this is a fair amount of consistency despite the really big increase in demand. And so we're trying not to rock the field too much this year with APS, especially ahead of what may be some revisions to the.
Eric, would you share why you think maybe there's a 1% decrease in grantees in rural counties, even though there's an increase in the number of applications that came from rural counties and the way we fund organizations?
Yeah, I think a piece of that is, there are a lot of counties that only have one application, so depending on the county reach that we get, you know, if that application from that one county doesn't reach an eligible threshold of the score, it doesn't get funded, and so in a lot of those rural counties, there may only be one, which places it in a pretty vulnerable spot that can be pretty volatile year to year. And with the increase in applications from more urban counties, once we get to that fourth round and it's competitive, most of the money at that point is going to more urban counties where they tend to score higher. And so it's kind of a miracle that we ended up this consistent despite the really big increase in applications, because proportionally a bigger increase in urban applications than rural applications, particularly with the AOS not funded trickling into this. And so that usually, I think, accounts for most of that discrepancy.
I would also say some of our first time more rural applicants did not hit that scoring threshold. And Paige, I think maybe that might be part of what you're trying to get to there. And that is, and we recognize that we're gonna need to do some capacity building, especially in those, for those rural, very rural first time applicants in the program. So I think that's something that we're gonna be thinking about for the future, because we want to see some of these very, very small project applications hopefully get supported, but clearly they need maybe some capacity building support and technical assistance.
And then this is the regional breakdown, and I just want to point your attention to the very last column. Every single region saw at least a quarter of their applications be new applicants, with some almost at 50%. So the regional partners were working with a lot of new folks this year, which has its capacity challenges because there's also draft review opportunities for new applicants. And so there's a lot of work on the regional program this year to help get a lot of these new folks through the process. And some folks apply pretty late in the game and don't get that draft review, which also typically is the smaller rural organizations. And so they don't necessarily end up receiving the technical assistance that is available, depending on the timeline of when they apply. So something to keep in mind, but a lot of new applicants in our region. Here is the funding recommendation. This is the percent funded by fiscal year. And so what I want you to point your attention to is in FY21, the first dot, and then in FY23, the third dot. It hovered around 75% of applications recommended for funding. So we are a little bit lower this year, but not dramatically off something that has happened in previous years, especially given the 37% increase in funding to only have a 14% drop in percent recommended is hopefully a little bit stabilizing. It could have been worse without the trust support. So I just wanted to provide that context for the percent recommended. And here is the funding. This also speaks to the demand has been consistently going up since 23 as we've been trying to meet the demand of the program. And here is the percent of recommended applicants by activity type. So those top three, and this is very typical of arts project support: arts instruction, concerts, performance or readings, and fairs and festivals. Those are the primary types of activities that happen in this program. And there's a smattering of a bunch of other ones after that. But between those three, it accounts for over 3/4 of the types of projects that are happening through this program.
Do you weigh those differently when you're evaluating the applicants?
We don't. There is no preference or scoring piece that comes into the activity type. Those are just there. And these categories are also federally prescribed. Yet another federal victim. Any other questions on this piece? All right, couple reflections, and some of this is actually already covered on from David's question. A lot of demand, some of it driven by AOS, multiple organizations filtered into arts project support from our Creative Convergence program, which is really exciting to see. That speaks to some of the sustainability and long-term success of that program. Some of the small organizations, like Maya mentioned, tend to not score as well, especially small towns and municipalities in particular had some particularly low scoring applications this year. So there's some capacity building work to do in that regard. And we had some strong university presence this year, particularly from IU and Purdue, more applications than normal, even some new units applying. So that is something to note. And then on sort of out of the numbers, out of the weeds, lot of really incredible projects and work going on. It always amazes me every year how many organizations apply for this and new organizations out there doing really fabulous work with the arts that I think we learn about new organizations every year we have this program. So it's just always really fulfilling to see all the great work that's being done in all the corners of the state. So
I do want to make a quick note that when it also these smaller organizations are applying, this is a pretty robust application. And I want to also kind of share a reminder that the consultants that we had come in, that reviewed the project support program had recommended that at some point we streamline the application and simplify it. And since our target is to increase rural grantees, I think the strategy for project support will absolutely have to change. So sort of teeing off for the future, just as an FYI.
So before we get to this, I wanna just follow on what Paige said. So obviously we're thinking about a funding pool for 26-27. That's one thing that we're obviously thinking about, how we're gonna react to this growth. And then also, you're gonna see at our next quarterly business meeting in September, you're gonna see some recommended changes to this program. Around access and around process and so forth. And to Paige's point, thinking about, in addition to a simplified application, how else can we lower the barrier for entry for our small places? So you're going to see, you'll actually hear from our consultant who worked with our Regional Arts Partnership program evaluation. You will hear his comment around the frequency of the availability of this program. This is an annual program. We also know that's a barrier to entry, especially for smaller places that miss that deadline and then they're out of luck till the following year. And then you got to hope that they'll remember or you remember to contact them and so forth. So this just preview of coming attractions. We're going to be talking, you're going to be seeing some significant, or hopefully some recommended, assuming it gets through Program Transit Services, recommended changes to this program in particular that will be significant, hoping to meet the moment that we're in related to interest in the program, and then obviously also following up with hopefully an increased a request for increased funding to help support the growth, because we can't go to the trust every year. We've got that's a limited pool. We can only draw the interest, and we've only so many times we can go to the well there. So, and we certainly could have gone more this year, but we felt like we needed to come back. So anyway, just a couple of things about APS. So
I'm actually going to skip this slide because we're going to do the funding recommendations for arts project support, arts organization support, and regional arts partnership, AOS and TAI. So these are in the packets that are at your places. It'll be probably a little bit hard to see up here. So here is the Region 1 recommendations for arts organization support. This is year 2 of the grant award for our general operating support grant. That was approved last year. So these are all the same folks last year for this one. And I'm just going to stop me if you have questions, concerns. I'm just going to keep using. Here is the project support in Region 1. To Greater South Bend area. Here is the arts organization support recommendations there. I will note one organization dissolved at the end of last year, so is not recommended for funding for this year. Moving on to arts project support for Region 2. Here's Region 3. Arts organization support, no changes. And arts project support and Region 3.
Hey, Eric, while we're at Region 3, I have a quick question.
Yes.
And I've noticed this in a couple of the regions, at least in Region 2 as well. If there are organizations that are applying year over year and not being funded year over year, do the reps help provide any input or coaching or technical support to even let them know if, you know what I mean, like if their organization or projects are a good fit for the program or what they could do that could be a better fit?
Yeah, that's a great question. The RAPs do provide feedback and we are make the comments, panelist comments available to all applicants so they can see what the panelist reviewer has said in terms of the fit of the project to the criteria of the grant. And so we invite grantees or invite applicants to ask questions and contact the RAP with that. In terms of sort of, do we look at tailored outreach and look at who hasn't been funded the past 3 years? We don't have an edict on that, but the RAPs work very closely with all their applicants, and usually most of the people that aren't funded usually do have a question or something that they'll reach out to the RAP with or escalate to us. And so there's a lot of that dialogue happening, especially for folks that are repeatedly not funded in.
Kayla, is there anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, I think that covers it. I mean, certainly it does seem that applicants that aren't funded a lot of times will reach out. And so I know in my region, I always field those questions, look at panelist comments, look at their application with them. So it's kind of on a case-by-case basis, depending on how receptive they are to that feedback.
Thank you.
For Greater Lafayette area. There's organizational support. Here again, there is an organization shutting down at the end of the fiscal year, so they will not be continuing on for year 2. Here is projects. Greater Muncie area. Organization support, exactly the same as last year. Project. 6, Greater Terre Haute area. Here is operating support, since same as last year. And project. Really exciting to see some new applicants in this region as well. Region 7, Greater Indy area. Here is A through H for organization. Yes. And here is I through K. Organization support. A lot of I's, as you might imagine. And then through Z. This is all arts operating. And here is project support A through H. I through Y. And that. You might know in Region 7, there are a lot not funded in project support. We received many more applications than we can fund in that region in particular, and that is typically the case for Region 7. It's a very, very competitive region. Region 8, Greater Bloomington, here's organization support. What changes? Here is project support. Here is Region 9, Greater Columbus area. Operating support is actually the same. And project support. A lot of new applicants in this region in particular. Okay, Region 10, Greater Evansville area. Our organization support is the same. Project support, also a lot of new applications in this region in particular as well. Region 12, Region Albany. Here is operating support. Here is product. And that is it for APS and AOS. Do we need to separate the actions?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, if you go back to the slide that actually has before we got into the recommendations, that actually covers what Brent's saying. Yeah.
And I just want to make sure to note, I think Eric, you mentioned it, but I wanted to make sure the minutes reflect the all of the commissioners were provided this detailed information ahead of the meeting. So while it might seem, if you just walked in, that we just ran through and hard to see the slides, we have this in front of us and we were all provided it with plenty of time to review all of the very specific data in there. So I will first entertain a motion to approve the AOS fiscal year 25 recommendations.
So moved.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Austin, if you'll call the roll.
Absolutely. Azizi,
Aye.
Rena,
Aye.
Chad,
Aye.
Dave,
Aye.
Greg,
Aye.
Mark,
Aye.
Jake,
Aye.
Kelsey,
Aye.
Renee,
Aye.
Anne,
Aye.
Scott,
Aye.
Lori.
Aye.
Motion carries. Next up, I will entertain a motion. I guess I should ask, do we have any discussion for this? Any of these recommendations? Any questions? Seeing none, I will entertain a motion to approve the fiscal year 25 APS grantee recommendation.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Austin, if you'll call the roll.
Azizi,
Aye.
Rena,
Aye.
Chad,
Aye.
Dave,
Aye.
Greg,
Aye.
Mark,
Aye.
Jake,
Aye.
Kelsey,
Aye.
Renee,
Aye.
Anne,
Aye.
Scott,
Aye.
Lori.
Aye.
Motion carries. Excellent. Okay.
All right, bringing the train into the station, folks. We'll get you. And again, sorry for the slide movement. Okay, FY 25 Regional Arts Partner Operating Support Awards and Traditional Arts Indiana. Regional Arts Partner, those that are arts organizations, also are in the Arts Organization Support Program. And so these are the regional partners we're recommending for AOS and Traditional Arts Indiana, which is our partnership with Indiana University for traditional arts that services the whole state. It's also in here as well, and is a piece of our NEA requirements too. And so those are the recommendations for those.
Any questions? I do want to note, this is technically a subset of AOS. That's why it's not a separate action listed on the agenda, but it is a piece of AOS. Maya and I were just talking, we might pull that out next
time we do it,
time
yeah.
we do this, but we're fine now because it is a subset of AOS.
Okay.
Seeing no questions, I will entertain a motion to approve the fiscal year 25 Regional Arts Partnership AOS and Traditional Arts Indiana recommendation.
So moved.
Second. We have
I love these recommendations.
we have a motion and a second. Oh,
Should we abstain for one?
No. That is
No.
not necessary. Nope,
Thanks.
it's not a conflict of interest.
thank you. Good for checking. Okay, Austin, will you call the roll, please?
Azizi,
Aye.
Rena,
Aye.
Chad,
Aye.
Dave,
Aye.
Greg,
Aye.
Mark,
Aye.
Jake,
Aye.
Kelsey,
Aye.
Renee,
Aye.
Anne,
Aye.
Scott,
Aye.
Lori.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. Sorry, you were looking at me.
I'm so sorry. But the next thing is all the way back here. Oh, you don't need it? Okay.
No, but thank you for trying to give me the little. So one request we have is the change to the guidelines, since this is a 2-year funding program, this guidelines were approved a while ago, and the change that we're requesting is to fund the grantees in full at the beginning of the cycle, which is consistent with project support guidelines as well. We ran a risk mitigation assessment to ensure that wouldn't cause any issues, and we feel very confident and comfortable that that's a good direction to go, both for the organizations as well as for the commission itself. So we are requesting approval for that guideline change to the arts organization support guideline.
Any discussion among the commission? Hearing none, I will entertain a motion to approve the change to the AOS guidelines.
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Austin, if you call the roll.
Azizi,
Aye.
Rena,
Aye.
Chad,
Aye.
Dave,
Aye.
Greg,
Aye.
Mark,
Aye.
Jake,
Aye.
Kelsey,
Aye.
Renee,
Aye.
Anne,
Aye.
Scott,
Aye.
Lori.
Aye.
Motion carries. All right. Next up, lifelong arts returning artists.
One more slide down.
We have one more slide.
Sorry, Anne, the three of us.
Never ending.
I've got a slide.
I can't work without a script, come on.
I know what the slide says.
Excellent.
I just wanted to take a moment and say that I want to assure everyone that we are taking care, as we have always tried to do, to make sure that those communications are handled with care, but regarding funding decisions and recommendations. But as a reminder, if you are contacted by any grantees or members of the public about funding decisions, we encourage you to contact the commission. We're happy for you to come alongside those conversations, but certainly would like to be a part of communicating with grantees so we can continue to understand the need and the requests of the public. So if you receive any inquiries or questions, I'm happy for you to remain a part of them, but we would like to be invited to help handle any inquiries that you might receive.
And in fact, for the arts project support communication for the non-funded applicants, there is specific information for them to contact me directly to talk about their application and their questions. So
You're really good at taking. We've given you a lot of practice.
it's been a good, it's a great opportunity to connect with grantees and or applicants and just talk about where they are and give them coaching and explain the process and so forth. So it's been very valuable for me to have those conversations. But if for some reason you are contacted, please feel free to direct them directly to us and we will engage with them. And they've been, again, very beneficial conversations.
Great, thank you. That's all. Okay, I'm waiting till the slide changes. Now, lifelong arts returning artists framework.
Yeah. This is one of the fun ones because although we both have our own portfolios and on the programs team, this is one where we overlap. Oh, this is my side. Okay. I'm going to talk about creative aging a little bit. Since 2022, we've been working on expanding our creative aging programs across the commission and across different focus groups. So the first thing we've been doing is preparing the field through capacity building, through training opportunities. And so this is just to date what we've done. We did 3 statewide open trainings with 104 participants from all different kinds of backgrounds. The best practices in creative aging having to do with how do you create a curriculum for older adults specifically. It is a different type of pedagogy than working with young people. So we talked to anyone who wanted to learn in the statewide open trainings about how to work with older adults when you're designing your arts experience, the benefits of the arts for older adults and the research behind that. So we provided these 3 open trainings. We had people from senior centers and assisted living facilities and YMCAs and libraries and all kinds of different folks joining us at those open trainings. And then we also did 2 artist cohort trainings, and Jordan led on those with some national partners, and we had 45 artists trained through those 2 cohorts. And then recently, earlier this year, we did an online library training in partnership with the Indiana State Library, folks right down the hall from here. And we got 45 libraries trained on creative aging best practices. And one arts organization training we did with 9 selected arts organizations who applied and were interested in doing creative aging work expansion at their organization. So first, we're preparing the field. Creative aging as a terminology is a kind of a new terminology. So some people are already doing it. Some people don't even know they're doing it and they're doing creative aging work and they're doing it really well. But we want to normalize it. We want to get the word out and have people reaching out to the older folks in their community to support this work. So we did this thing, and so far very successful. 97% marked the training's good or excellent, and 99% agreed that it was useful, practical, and increased their knowledge and competence. So yay for training. Here's a great photo from, you want to talk about it?
Sure.
Yeah.
Final reports have been due for the the new artists cohort. And this was a picture someone submitted, Jill Myers from Columbus, on her dance program. It's wonderful, 8 years.
And this was an artist-led
the artist in the middle there, she wrote the grant, received the funding and put on this program in her own community. Phase two, so we did the training. Phase two is those early action grants, and they've been rolling out since we've been doing the training for the last few years, and going forward. Also, we have some grants planned moving forward. We've invested in 11 aging service provider grants to date, 45 artist grants, 38 library grants have gone out to date, and 9 arts organizations for a total investment to date of $511,693. And we're really excited about creative aging investment.
This is just another,
The photo credit covered in the.
but it was a holiday celebration with these wonderful folks here at the senior facility, and again, the artist is in the middle who led this group.
I'm hoping that's a holiday celebration.
I mean, I like. This is in LaPorte County.
It's Christmas.
And phase three for our current creative aging focus is the research, right? And sharing the impact of this work. We've been hustling, getting this money out, getting, 200 grants and all the people trained and all these different, outreach to different communities. And so we want to make sure we take a moment when the University of Indianapolis research that Eric talked about comes out in the fall. I'm going to take a moment to make sure we share this impact that we've got going on. We've been having meetings with them as they're going through the research process. And every single time they go, oh my gosh, we've got great data. Oh, we've got this great quotes for you. Can't wait to share. They've been doing one-on-one interviews, and they've collected a lot of good stories and quotes, and as well as the quantitative data that they're doing about the improvement of well-being. So we're really excited to share the impact. Hopefully comprehensive report coming in December. Oh, this is in the report, yeah.
Laura Crimson, LaPorte Region 1, she was really fun to work with. She had a lot of questions, but I like when people have a lot of questions, because that means they're engaged and excited about what they're doing. And she just really had a fun time watercolor with the folks that she taught.
Cool. So specifically for approval today in front of you, that was like a recap, and this is specifically for approval. Jordan and I have come up with the next phase of this artist focused creative aging work. Tried to make a chart that made sense. I'm trying to make sense of it. In fiscal year 23, we had cohort 1, and they had another year of grant funding where they got to grow their program in year 2, and now they're on a break. This first cohort of artists. And now the second cohort, this year they got $1,500 grant. They're moving into their second year, which is what we want approved right now. And then they'll also go into a break. So there's this little pattern here of they get to pilot and try something out, then they get to practice it again and grow it a little bit in their community, and then we're on a break. So we have in front of you in your packet the framework for that funding for $3,500 grants for artists to do creative aging work. Any questions on the framework in your packet?
All right, no questions. I will entertain a motion to approve the Lifelong Arts Returning Artists Framework.
So
Which,
moved.
as a reminder, is what we do now instead of approving guidelines.
Thank you. Yes. Okay. Did I hear a so moved? Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Austin, if you'll call the roll.
Absolutely, it's easy.
Aye.
Brianna,
Aye.
Chad,
Aye.
Dave,
Aye.
Greg,
Aye.
Mark,
Aye.
Jake,
Aye.
Kelsey,
Aye.
Renee,
Aye.
Anne,
Aye.
Scott,
Aye.
Lori.
Aye.
Motion carries. All right, before we move along, we're going to take a quick break. 10 minutes. So it is 10:15 at 10:25. I'll be yelling at Chad to come in back.
That's right.
Stephanie.
Yes. Yes. Look at right now.
We're ready.
Thank you.
We're so ready.
Thank you, Raina.
All right. We're gonna switch to just the next two items.
Yeah, I can't get him to stop.
just trying to infuse my timetable.
First, so we're gonna start with Artist Services, next steps presentation from Jordan, because we have someone coming in for the regional arts partner. We want to give time for that. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, good morning, everybody.
Morning.
We started this conversation about a year ago, right here in June, talking about the plan to assess artist needs in our state and do that on a research and design basis. And so we'll do a quick overview and goals of what the assessment was to create an opportunity for local artists to network with one another, connect and learn from each other, as well as informing programming for assigned services and new programs for individual artists, as well as provide an open forum for artists of their backgrounds to voice their needs, concerns, and experiences about their connection to creativity. So the assessment consisted of two different parts. The listening sessions went to all of our 11 regions, the count in my head, yeah, 11. And held listening sessions. The facilitation for the training that we conducted was by the Tamarack Foundation for the Arts. The demographics for each region, the target demographics for each region was co-designed with Dr. Elaine Corbin. We facilitated between Eric and myself, as well as 4 other contractor artists. They were all hosted by RACs and other organizations within that specific region, and then co-hosted with local artists that would invite those artists to come to the listening session. And then we had about 140 audience participate. The statewide survey from the listening sessions, Eric and his colleague Natalie developed themes from each of those listening sessions through transcripts of the conversations. And so that led into the survey. And then we disseminated that statewide with a response of over 580 folks. This is very small. I will let you know what it says. But it is a timeline of all the work we did today. So we started in September with our pilot session here in Indianapolis at the Indie Arts Council offices with Ryan as host, Noble Arts, Noble Create as the host. And then in September, at the end of September, we moved on. December was our last listening session in Gary, Indiana. And then in January, the survey was shared out and closed in early February. We all had our debrief of what those results offered us in information. And then we started some brainstorming sessions with Dr. Luttrell on what those that feedback could be turned into. We then moved into March with our final assessment of the survey to make sure that what we were designing matched that actual feedback in that survey. And here we are discussing what those programs mean. So again, just remembering what the needs emerged from the survey were its networking connection, marketing support and education, financial support and education, local investment in local artists, as well as affordable access to spaces. So thinking studio space, things of that nature. So again, if you want to read back all that intel, you can go to our website. Click on Artist Services, and at the top of Artist Services Hub, there is a link to all of the information that we did there. So proposed new programs. It is going to come in the form of 2 suites. Suite A being community building with 3 different programs, and Suite B being business development for our creative entrepreneurs in the state with 3 different programs. So the first program is Suite A, community building, networking community program. Then there will be, of course, networking connection with the audience being primarily emerging artists. The key components there will be a micro support group that meets throughout the year on a monthly basis. It will be led by a group lead who is an artist that is more esteemed, or an artist or somebody who is connected to the arts that is more esteemed and can do those administrative responsibilities. And the format will be in 2 parts. One sharing a challenge that they're going through, in the group offering suggestions on how they can support that challenge, and then going on to what is also working well. And each session will be 90 minutes. There will also be a grant opportunity, small grants, from $250 to $1,000. And there will be no more than 10 to 15 people in each group. With $20,000 for the full year with that rolling basis of grants. Please feel free to stop me. The next, program will be local liaisons, kind of taking on the format of our regional arts partners, but more directly for artists, as we see our regional arts partners are more so focused on organization support and project support. This will be somebody who is dedicated fully to the artists. The audience will be all artists, no matter their discipline or career status. And again, it kind of would move from that group lead of the networking community program, moving into a more full-time role. And this will be fulfilled again by somebody who is connected in both the arts world and can advocate with the non-artist community as well. I mean, this name is subject to change because I've heard it's confusing, but it's just a meeting format, virtual meeting format for artists to be able to meet and kind of speak about both hard and soft skills as being an artist with one another. So moving into Suite D with business development, the first program will be Creative Business Strategy Series. Again, this will be alongside Dr. Luttrell, but it would meet marketing support and financial support and education, and the audience will be sustaining and scaling artists. The key components here would be that is a 6-week series with some clear-cut goals and framework. But it would be similar to ORMRAMP that it covers business strategy, but this is not an introduction course. It would more so go into application, what that looks like in real time with what their careers are doing in real time. Again, 15 to 20 artists, and then $1,000 token to put towards their business as well. Well, actually there. The next will be Get It Going series, again, marketing support and financial education, as well as local access. And this will be for emerging artists. Think of a pre-ORMRAMP, kind of figuring out like setting up a business and what that looks like. Some people that come to us in ORMRAMP are kind of in that, like, I'm doing it, but I don't know actually what I'm doing. But this will be somebody who's like, I am interested in the arts, but I have not even started looking at it as a hobby or anything. So set up business that way, and this will be a $1,500 token for software subscriptions or certifications to help to move along. And then ramp up. This will be all the work that we're doing with those other programs will lead to this. This will come with the combination program, and this will be for established artists to kind of integrate them into established entities, whether it be corporate businesses, government entities, and then it will be a full-time salary with part-time work within that business entity, and then part-time work within their own creative practice, seeing that their creativity inspires them to be able to fulfill the work that they're doing in that business. I think let's get there. So what does this mean for the evolution of ORMRAMP? ORMRAMP is our premier program for our creative entrepreneurs in the state. And so if you look, we started in 2018 with cohort 1. We took a pause in 2020 because of COVID. Until 2021, you see it come back with the central cohort in Lafayette, with other local cohorts in different regions within the state. 2022, 2024, we'll go back to that one central model. And I'm suggesting that we pause in this next fiscal year for evaluation. Greg, thank you for the question you raised in the Program Grants and Services Committee meeting about what that evaluation looks like. At first, I just thought in my head, like, yeah, me in Atlanta. However, after that question, I'm like, yeah, maybe I should in here. So I've looked at consultants, but we'll probably put out a request for a proposal on what consultants and evaluators are interested in evaluating that program from a production standpoint, as well as a content standpoint. So excited to get that underway. And then 2026, we're suggesting that we bring it back and have those local liaisons program, kind of train them, and then bring it back in 2027 for local cohorts around the region, going back to that kind of 2021. Great. And then timeline. So you have, this will be rolled out over the next 3 fiscal years 25 to 27 with one program from CASB being rolled out. Planning implementation and then kind of hitting the ground running with it in real time. Of course, we'll come back in September with frameworks to be presented for the network and community program as well as the creative business strategy series as well. So partnerships internal, much to the work that Stephanie and I had done with creative aging and overlapping. We want to see these kind of programs overlap with our different programs as well. And then externally, we are in talks with the IEDC and ISPDC, Economic Development Corporation, Small Business Development Corporation, other arts organizations, and then identify communities, companies in the community as well. So we want to make this a robust partnership. Overall, and then budget and framework, Jordan, how are you paying for this? The funds have been allocated. Yeah, we'll say that, but we'll just, the grant programs that have grant opportunities with them have been allocated, and then we'll probably rearrange some items for that evaluation as well. For Ornament, again, the frameworks will be presented in September as well.
Any questions? Are you doing any leverage setting with the groups that you've already brought together? They gave you all this wonderful information, but now it's on their perception, maybe it's on pause because of the evaluation process. Are you communicating that back?
So you're saying for Ornament?
No, I'm thinking for the on-ramp.
So two things. With the overall work that we've done, I've been in talks with communications. We kind of didn't want to keep pushing information out and then like, wait, there is more coming. So we kind of pause the communication until we can say what we actually will be doing. And so we'll put more information on the website as well as the communication we sent out to disseminate the survey. We'll kind of respond to everybody with, okay, this is what you said, this is what we heard, and here's what we're doing all together at once. As far as OnRamp, I want to make sure I have the conversation with our commissioner first about the pause before I make an announcement about the policy evaluation. I've had many of inquiries about next year's cohort already, and I just wanted to make sure we had the conversation here first before I made a full-blown announcement.
Just add one quick thing, that when we did those listening sessions, the transcript from the sessions was sent out to all the participants from the listening session. So they got to review those and have access to those.
I don't have a question, just this is really good work, Jordan. It's very thorough process. It was great to see all the involvement from the folks there, and I look forward to seeing what it's going to produce going forward.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Jordan. All right, Paige, you're up with the Regional Arts Partner Evaluation presentation.
All right, I'm deliberating if I should stand or not. Where we're at.
You choice, you.
Yeah. We'll see how it feels. Okay. So our consultant's here today and he's going to share his report of the evaluation of the Regional Arts Partnership, but I wanted to share a primer about the partnership so that report would be a lot more meaningful to you. So we'll go back in the Wayback Machine. When we started the partnership was back in 1996. And the reason that we started it was the majority of our efforts, our grants or investments or services were all central part of the state, where we're charged to serve the entire state. So I think it was a great strategy to develop, like many state agencies do, a regional system to provide broad localized access to IAC opportunities and services. So they identified 12 regions and 12 organizations in each of those regions to partner with that would provide a set of services under contract with the IAC. Today, the total of that contract for all of the partners is just under $400,000. And our last call for proposals or be interested in being a partner was in 2019. We had no external applicants outside of the partners that already were doing that work. But I also want to talk about the services that the partners provide. And in the very beginning stages, 96 through about 2010, what they provided was a lot deeper because the investment was a lot larger, perhaps to incentivize them to come on board with it. The requirements that we had was that they have at least a part-time staff member that would be in charge of serving, doing this work, the regional service representative. And then they would administer the arts organization support grants and the project support grants on IAC. And at that time, they also had a mini grant program. And in addition to that, they did a cultural planning for the region, which is kind of prescient, right? Because regional planning is a really big deal now. So that's another service they provided. In addition to that, they were required to have a regional advisory council, which is really smart. You would even deepen that network more by having a representative from each of the counties in that region. And they would meet about 4 times a year. And they also, of course, provided information referrals, so sharing out opportunities to that network and opportunities that IAC provides, and even other arts opportunities within their own region. And beyond that, they also provided capacity building training opportunities for folks in their region. It could be organizations and it could be artists as well. So then the 2008 rolled around, and that resulted in all of us receiving a significant budget cut to state agencies, IAC included, ultimately about 36%. So in its heyday, in terms of the allocation that IAC provided partners, that was a total of $911,000. So earlier I said what they receive now is just under $400,000. So as a result, the requirements of the services decreased to be commensurate with what we're providing a stipend for them to do. When we did that decrease, though, we lost some of the partners that had been with the partnership since the very beginning. And that was in Region 8 dissolved, the Indie Arts Council left, and a couple others. IAC was able to replace them. And we always have why don't you have a Region 11 on your map? Let me demystify.
Well, hold on. Now, on this piece of paper, if you will notice, this is the last piece of paper in your stack.
Uh-oh.
I am Region 11.
Oh, no.
Wah, wah.
I think that might be a typo.
Okay, just double checking that they haven't changed something that I need to now.
Surprise. I blame it on Excel. I blame it on Excel. It's like, I want to go to 11.
Okay, 11, yes.
So what happened was that Region 11 organization dissolved, and rather than find a partner in that area of the state, it was very challenging in rural parts of the state. Those counties just got absorbed in other regions. Nobody wanted to call the Region 11, so here we are today. Now, going back though, so the services then honed specifically to administrating arts organization support and arts project support, and providing that information and referral purpose, which is to share out IAC opportunities, because we really want to get information throughout the state. So a lot has changed since we started the partnership. We have saved a literal rainforest of trees because we don't have paper applications anymore. So back in the day when I applied to an IAC grant, I'd type up the application and I'd print it out, and then I'd have to make 10 copies, and I'd have to put colored paper in between each, right? And you had the 3-hole punch. All of those people. So then put it in a binder, then you gotta chuck over to the partner and deliver the application. Think about an applicant in, say, Region 4, which has 14 counties, that's an hour away to deliver those applications. So We went to technology, we did an online system. And of course, at 2020, panels moved to Zoom. We always had the reviewers, they would come in person, they'd come to the table and we would ply them with Panera, which was great. I love Panera potato chips. There's nothing better on the planet. So now I would really get really excited. We it's covered. We don't have our fabulous photo of us. Panera, we need to go. Stephanie's like, okay. So that's where you're not seeing. She's like, yeah. But with the move to technology, the role of IAC really increased. We have to manage all of those Zoom panels. We have to teach the partners, how are we going to do this? And the same thing with the online grant system. Okay, this is what we're going to do here. Anytime we change something, we have to really work with the partners to ensure that they understand how to translate that for the field. We also did arts organization support review of the program. We had people from all over the state who provided feedback. The partners were right alongside with us to make sure that everybody was aware and that any changes that we made were translated and received well too. So rather than meeting in person 4 times a year, we now meet online about twice a month throughout the year. In addition to doing a substantial amount of technical support and revisioning of the program in many different ways. So, and then there's been a lot of partnership turnover, which requires us to provide that training. So given all this change for a program that started many, many years ago, it made sense to review and see, is the purpose that it was created still like logical? We're getting funding all over the state. Our services are all over the state, which is fantastic. System has been really serving well in that function. So we decided to bring in a reviewer, and Maya did a great job finding a unicorn, a person who really knows how to do this work and do it well, but also has experience working with a decentralized system, which is what the Regional Arts Partnership is. So we have Neil Cuthbert today, is with Cuthbert and Robinson Consulting. And I'll share his bio with you, and then he'll provide a report. And then Maya will take us home on our next steps. So about Neil. Since retiring 7 years ago, after 25 years at the McKnight Foundation, Neil Cuthbert has been consulting with various nonprofits and businesses. While vice president at McKnight, Neil oversaw an annual grant making budget of 90+ million. That's really what we're striving for.
That's going to be my request.
Exactly. Okay, we let the number come to that.
That's the center.
So, yeah. Like, they created McKnight's first approach to evaluation and worked with several of McKnight's funding intermediaries, so those decentralized, including 6 rural Minnesota initiative foundations, among others. So prior to being a VP, Neil was McKnight's arts program director for 16 years. And in addition to framing up McKnight's arts programs that provided 8 to 12 million annually to support the arts in Minnesota, he developed several reports, including arts development in suburbs, 2 economic impact studies, the impact of arts in rural communities, and several others. And with that, I invite you, Neil, to join us.
Good morning, everybody. Nice to meet you, even over Zoom. And Paige, are we gonna? Okay, this is the first slide. So I'm going to briefly go over the evaluation charge, and these are the questions. Then I'll touch briefly on the process that we use to kind of frame up the evaluation. Quickly review some direct answers to these questions, give some general observations, and then walk through the recommendations. So the evaluation charge was really, as Paige said, was to look at the RAP system as it is today and really understand, is it meeting its aims? Is it doing what some of the intentions are, and given how some of those intentions have changed over time. So the questions are, pretty straightforward. Is the program achieving its purpose? Are the stakeholders understanding the program activities? Do the stakeholders, meaning the partners, the RAP partners, are they executing the program activities and meeting the requirements? Are the program activities, do they align with each of those partners' missions? So what IAC is asking of them, does it line up with the missions of the organizations that we're in partnership with? Do the RAP partners, are they served by this partnership? Is there value that comes to them as a result of partnering with IAC on this work? And then finally, do the partners have a capacity individually, collectively, to fulfill the program requirements? And all of these answers, these questions, the answers are kind of, yeah, more or less, but it's in the more or less that some of the richness and interesting kind of discoveries come out. Finally, there's what are the recommendations? So next slide. Okay, so the process was pretty straightforward. Paige mentioned, Mia found me via her fellow wizard in the people who run state arts agencies. I have worked with the Minnesota State Arts Board and knew its executive director for quite some time, and Mia made a connection with her, and conversations began in kind of the last quarter of last year. We conferred on scope and timeline and came to some agreements. And once we had those agreements, the document review process began in January of this year. And document review it should be documents review. I mean, there was kind of a mountain of documents to go through. I spent a fair amount of time reviewing historical documents, contracts, processes, meeting notes, all sorts of things, just to get a sense of the history, the arc of the program, the different partners and things like that. So the interviews actually began with the RAP reps and the IAC leadership. They began in March. I finished them by the end of April. There were a couple of dozen of those. And then I drafted a report, and that was delivered on the 3rd of May. So next slide. So just to quickly, well, actually, can we go back another slide to the questions, to the first slide? Yeah. So, just to kind of quickly, very, very, very high level before I get into some of the general observations. As I said, a lot of the answers to these questions are, yeah, more or less, because the nature of the program has changed. The requirements for the program have changed over the course of time, and having the budget decrease and things like that. So is the program achieving its purpose? Yes, more or less. At this point in time, the purpose of the program is to function as an administrative delivery system for grants, a distributed system across the state. And you are getting money all over the state, not in every county, but you are getting money all over the state, which is no small thing. Do the stakeholders understand the program activities? Yep, more or less. They know what they're doing. Some people have more experience than others, but they are all understanding what the program is about and what their basic duties are, which is, panelists, sourcing applications, doing technical assistance on those applications, and then kind of delivering kind of review product. So do they execute the program activities and meet the requirements? Absolutely, more or less. Again, it's within a range of capacities. You're dealing with some organizations that are larger than others. Some are small arts councils that have minimal staff. They get overwhelmed by the grant season when it comes in. They meet all the requirements, but they are differently sized, from small little agencies, art councils, to much larger arts councils. And then there's a few community foundations that are thrown into the mix, which is kind of a whole different kind of administrative relationship. And to what extent do the program activities align with the partners' missions? And that's where it's a little bit all over the map. In general, there's some alignment with a lot of the arts councils. I think one of the big things that is distinct here in Minnesota, there's a rural arts funding system that is complementary to the state arts board. It's called the Regional Arts Councils. They were created almost 50 years ago by the Minnesota legislature. So they receive public funds along with the state arts board, and through a formula, they distribute them across the state. So Minnesota has had this distributed regional arts funding system for about 50 years. Each one of those agencies, there's about a dozen of them all over the state. They have staff, board, they've their own systems that they've been literally honing for decades and decades. So it was a purpose-built system. And so one of the differences with this system is that IAC in a, you know, wanting to get money out to all the corners of the state, wanting to kind of fulfill that aspect of its mission, really sought out partners whose organizations had been founded for different reasons. So the missions of these organizations was not to be a partner to distribute IAC money. It was to promulgate the arts in, you know, Southwest Indiana or Central Indiana or Northwest, you know, I mean, they were founded for other reasons, and they found some alignment with doing the distribution of the IAC monies. But again, that Genesis story, I think, plays out in this system in a different way, certainly than in Minnesota. So the next question, are the stakeholders, are the reps served by and brought value by the program? And they all are in different ways. The community foundations see value because, you know, community foundations need to raise money. They like to have a variety of funds that they can distribute. The IAC monies adds to their the assets that they can offer to their communities. The arts councils all see value. Some, it's the association with IAC. For a lot, it's the fact that they have a half-time person who's funded by this work, which really augments the work of the arts councils. So there's a whole mix of reasons that people see value and are served by this partnership. And a lot of it has to do with the specificity of the organizations that are the partner, that are the RAP. And the last question is, to what extent do the partners have the capacity to fulfill the current program requirements? Again, this is more or less they have the capacity. There is such a wide range of capacity among the organizations that for some, it requires during grant season, I would say maximum effort, and, you know, all of their other work is kind of, you know, put to the side while they're in grant season. For others, there's more capacity in some of the larger arts councils that they, you know, they're able to kind of absorb the work and not have it be kind of their front and center work for, you know, the 3 or 4 months that they do the grants work. And then we'll get to the recommendations. So if we could jump ahead a slide or two to the general findings. So some of these things I've already covered a little bit, but the RAP system had an original design that Paige talked about. It's had to adjust to a variety of changes. Some were internal, some were external. So as a system, it has not been a consistent system just because it's had to adapt. And that's what systems do. That's what these kind of networks do. Some of the RAPs are really just purely administrative partners, and others really do offer additional program elements because of the nature and the quality of those organizations. Again, just having a partner that's a good administrative host is no small thing. I mean, you're a public agency, you want to have that credibility, you want that money and those programs to be kind of bulletproof in terms of how they're run. And so that's a valuable asset. But what happens when you look across the system is that you see some partners are purely administrative and some partners really bring more to the party is a phrase that I use in the report. As I've said, the RAPs are quite varied in their sizes, missions, and capacities. And as we've covered, some of the RAP sites, the missions do align with IAC, others really don't. I mean, it's not like there's a misalignment in terms of conflict. It's just that they're just parallel. You know, there's not a lot of overlap. And that's, you know, in a way, if there's no interference, that's fine. The IAC work can go on. It's just not lifted or buoyed by other activities of the organization. So one of the observations is that, you know, basically the grants are getting out, the panelists are happening, the reviews are happening. So the basic work is getting done, but there's a lot of variations across the system. And those variations cause a fair amount of what I, you know, would observe unintentionally, you know, as a kind of a real discontinuity in the quality and the amount of program delivery and the kind of impact the program can have. Some of those discontinuities, you know, are purely, you know, some of the regions are better at sourcing panelists and applicants. So some of the regions, you know, get applicants from every county. Others don't. To me, that seems like a fairly low bar. But in other ways, it plays out where there's, you know, some of the arts councils or the foundations, they have their own sub-community that they operate out of, and it's sometimes harder for them to break out of their town or their sub-community and look at other communities in their region. And so there is a kind of an equity thing. I mean, geographic equity, sometimes cultural equity, things that this system, because of the discontinuities and the capacities of the organization, that just the nature of it. I've said this already, but I do want to emphasize all the RAPs value their participation in the program. They do see benefits accruing to their organizations. They really enjoy being part of, or see the benefit of being part of a system, a statewide system. There's obviously an endorsement that they all feel from IAC and being chosen to participate in IAC's activities. They all appreciate having a half-time, you know, person funded in their shops. That really helps with a lot of the smaller organizations. So there is a lot of goodwill there. They all have a good relationship with IAC. They value the communication and the camaraderie, the kind of the collegial counseling and all of that. So final slide. So the recommendations are kind of, there's three, but they're kind of twofold. The first is really a first step for IAC. And that's really, you know, for IAC to kind of take stock of what its vision is at this point in time, and what its desired outcomes are at this point in time for the RAP system. I think that because, as you know, Paige mentioned, there used to be, you know, regional planning and a regional kind of arts council. There are all of these other aspects that the RAP program used to have that some of the regions still maintain because it's in their own self-interest. But a lot of those things have fallen by the wayside, but you can still feel the need or the desire to have some of those activities happen around the state. So right now, what IAC has is essentially an administrative delivery system. And so I think it's kind of just a point in time to take stock and say, okay, so is this good? Is this what we want? Do we want more? If we want more, what do we need to do to get more out of the RAP system? So one is really just a stock taking reflective practice, reflective thing for IAC to do. And then the next two recommendations are two just different courses of action. the first of the two is really to just embrace the complexity, bless the mess. It's a good mess, I mean, it's kind of like, it's like any network is a complicated thing, and it requires a lot of care and feeding, hand holding and maintenance. And that's just the nature of having a complex system. So rather than being, kind of wanting more from it, it's just like, okay, this is what it is. It is meeting a lot of basic things, basic functions. You're having grants distributed and decisions made locally rather than centrally. I mean, there's all sorts of value that you're getting out of this current system. It is complicated. It is high maintenance. It's hard to hold that system accountable across the board because of the wide variety of organizations and the capacity of those organizations. So it's really, as an evaluator and as somebody who looks at these kind of systems, it's hard to kind of go in it and say we're comparing apples to apples. You're comparing, apples to cereal. I mean, they're really in quite different places. But that said, there's work that's getting done, and it's valuable work. But my third recommendation is really like, okay, you've been at this system, you've been at this for a couple of plus decades. It is a point in time. It's gone through a couple of iterations. It could be a point in time to really take a look at redesigning it, to be able to make it be a more consistent, impactful, and accountable system across the state. There's an opportunity to do that. A lot of the RAPs were suggesting things along these lines as well. This is not anything that would surprise anybody. There's a kind of a sense that the system is great, but kind of unruly, and honing it down, making it be a system that IAC can partner with more as a system, I think would have a lot of benefit for impact, consistency of impact, certainly accountability for IAC's work and how it's being delivered across the state. And so that's, so a redesign would be something that you'd obviously want to again, take some time with and think about, but I make some specific recommendations in the report about some steps with that. And with that, I will close it out, open it up for questions. Paige, anything you want to add or questions to start with?
Yeah, so I would open it up to the commissioners. Questions for Neil? Let's hear. The full report's in your packet?
The only comment I would make is that nothing is shocking about this. This sort of reaffirms what we might have assumed about the partnership over the last 20-some years. So that's good. I think there wasn't anything enormously surprising.
I'm curious, Neil, in your experience, did anyone ever try to implement something that looks like course 2 versus course 3? And if so, how did that turn out for them?
You're talking about just blessing the mess, taking.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, there are kind of re-granting systems around the country, not just in the arts, but in other things that work with a variety of partners. I think what often happens is they have the challenges when it comes to gauging impact and doing evaluation because of the inconsistent nature of the partners. And also there's things that happen when you're an administrative site administering that. You have internal and external pressures about costs and how much time you're burning maintaining a system. So that's a constant theme with more complex systems. You get that kind of pushback from the people that surround the system. So there's a constant desire to review and tweak. So I don't know, I mean, it's hard for humans to not try to make something better, you know, and the second course would be one of those things where it'd be really hard to have kind of the maturity to say, no, okay, we're just going to roll with the mess. And it's a good mess, you know, I don't mean that, you know, negatively, it's the nature of it.
Any other questions at the moment?
I just have hopefully a quick one. Your comment about how the commission might interact with the RAPS as a system. Can you say a little bit more about what that might look like?
Well, sure. Right now, there was I mean, there are, as Paige mentioned, there's a lot of ongoing conversations and Zooms. There was a recent retreat of the RAP sites that people really valued. One of the reflections that some people had coming out of that is, boy, this is a motley crew of organizations. So if you redesigned the group, you know, so it was more of a consistent group, you know, my recommendation is for, you know, to reduce the number of regions and have full-time contractors kind of doing the work. IAC would have a whole different set of partners. They would have 6 contractors who are all doing very similar work, maybe in slightly different contexts, but they would be able to turn to them as a group in thought partnership and strategy development in, okay, how is this working in your region? And you wouldn't be talking about, well, it's different in my region because I'm a community foundation, or it's different in my region because I'm a tiny arts council, or it's different in my region because I'm a big arts council, or it's different in my region because I'm in a little town and there are all of these other towns in the region that are much bigger, and you know, we have pretty broad cultural differences. So the consistency of who you're partnering with and where you get your intelligence from and making strategy decisions, I think would just transform. I mean, you get a lot of intel out of the current system, but it's all over the map, and which, you know, has its benefits. That's part of embracing the complexity of the current system. But if you do have a more consistent group of partners in the staff and in the organizations, I think it'll transform the kind of conversations that IAC can have with the system and the expectations that IAC can have of the system.
Yeah, thank you. That helps just get more of what that looks like in mind, and well, more discussion to come, I'm sure. Just other things that are kind of you've triggered in the back of my mind. Thank you. This is really interesting.
So if we could go to the next slide. So what's next? So phase 1, which we're in right now, June through December 2024, we're going to initiate the process to clarify that vision and the desired outcomes for regional service delivery. So we recognize, again, we so appreciate Neil's recommendations and his recommendation that we pause first and figure out what it is actually we need a regional service delivery system to do for us. We also need to talk about internal parameters that would impact regional service delivery, because obviously if we were able to support full-time staff in these regions, we would do it, right? So there are internal parameters that will impact for the future what a regional service delivery program can look like, and we need to kind of be clear about those and understand those. And then we'll report back to the commission. In my head, initially, when we started this process, I'd hoped we'd have something to you by September. That is not going to happen. And so we're pushing it on to December to have results of that internal conversation. And Mark Maxwell and Greg have also already volunteered to sort of help come alongside as commissioners to sort of be a mini study group to kind of for us to bounce ideas off as we think about that internally. And then phase 2 will hopefully commence in January of next year and will take us into March. And then we'll design that approach, assuming that the commission endorses what we bring to them as a recommendation. We'll design an approach, but to Neil's point, and this is really important, we've got to test what we want to see happen in the realities that exist in the state, right? Do we have organizations that could do the thing that we want them to do? You know, who are they? Do they exist? Can anyone do what, you know, what we would want them to do? So that's a really important piece of the work, is to make sure that we're not building something that no one, frankly, anymore has the capacity to do, or frankly be interested in doing. What's important for this partnership is that it advances the organization's work as well. And it should not be just a one-way relationship due for us, right? So we need to make sure that there are organizations out there or realities out there in which this is beneficial. And then back to the commission, hopefully by next March. And then want to be clear, target date for any significant changes that would impact any kind of regional service delivery would not be until July 1, 2027, which would be the beginning of FY28. So we are taking a long view on this, because it is just, you know, it would be whatever change we make will be change, and probably big change potentially. So want to make sure that we have plenty of time to contemplate that and do that carefully and deliberately. We'll also understand the resource environment as we move into the next administration. I mean, there's going to be a lot more things that are going to come clear for us in the next year and a half about what we could potentially do. So any questions, concerns, heartburn?
I know you've referenced it throughout, but could you talk a little bit, particularly on the going forward piece of it, where and how the existing current regional arts partners are connected with this process? That we're not, I believe we're not doing it under dark of night.
Yes, we are not.
In isolation, but it's also not, it's in, I would think it's in partnership, but not driven by.
Paige, you want to speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, or even Kayla. She's like, I'm texting, but if you would like to chime in terms of the regional arts partner involvement with the review process and being along the way with this journey.
Yeah, of course. And I think I might be next on the agenda, and I was just going to touch briefly on that as well. But yeah, we've certainly been in the loop, and Sherry and I as co-chairs had an opportunity to discuss the report initially with Paige, and then all of that was shared with the rest of the partners, and there's been opportunity for feedback. So we've been involved, we're in the loop, and we think it makes sense the way that the IAC is going about this, and being thoughtful. So yeah, no concerns from my perspective.
Great, thank you, Kayla. Yeah. So we're in close contact. We meet twice a month. So and
yes,
been instrumental in going through with us through a lot of the changes that we have put out into the field, and this has been no exception. No exception.
Exactly.
So, right.
And so next time Paige convenes with them, she'll be sharing out this timeline so that they know kind of what to look for next. Right now it's as is, work is as is, but we'll be bringing them into this process as we continue to.
Thank you.
Neil, anything else you want to pitch in? You were fantastic to work with, my friend.
This was a real privilege and pleasure to do. It's great to see you, Kayla. I really enjoyed speaking with all of the regions. Great partners, great work, and it was really fun to get to know Indiana more. That was a real benefit. So thanks for the opportunity.
Greatest state of all.
I'd
say that.
Thank you, Neil. Thank you. Okay, I think we have one more thing before we get back to Kayla on the regional arts partnership is first education, or a share out on arts education from Stephanie.
Yep, we're pulling up the caboose here in the arts education department, the last of your lectures for the day, so please stick with me. I'm gonna talk a little bit about arts education, the whole portfolio of within the arts education realm, and in fact, I call it arts and learning. So when I say arts education, it's likely you think of young people. K through 12, that is the connotation for that terminology, arts education in a school setting. And so we have some of those programs. We have a program that supports teachers and arts learning in school, arts education program, K through 12. But we also have programs in the community. I think we can all agree that learning in and through and of the arts doesn't stop when you graduate formal education, right? So in the community, there's so much arts learning happening at arts centers and symphonies and community centers, and even with our creative aging program at libraries and in senior centers. So that is the category of community arts learning. And then we'll talk briefly at the end of this, talk about out of school time, which is kind of a combination of the two, in school and community. And I want to talk about the Fellowship for Creative Teaching program, also part of the Summer Institute for Creative Teaching, but we paid someone a lot of money to record me already saying all these things, so I'm just gonna play the video. I can't do that from here. I don't know. Go.
At the bottom.
Here's my friend.
That bottom little icon down there. Yeah.
These are the slide control.
And.
No, nobody can share the link. What? No. Talk about it. Every time I open the slides, it would automatically start playing. I couldn't stop it from playing before.
It's not going to stop it, because yeah, it's not even.
We used to be able to send people to the moon.
Or did we?
Well.
Let's not start that conversation.
PowerPoint flummoxes this all.
All right, you wanna? I'll just repeat what I said in the recording.
Yeah, it's just a, this is just a photo, right?
All right,
Do you have the link?
there we go. That's fine. I'll just
Yeah,
talk
let's
about
press
it.
on.
Happy to talk about it. We have a very nice video you all will receive a link to later. That shows you in action the Summer Institute for Creative Teaching last year when we were in Franklin, Indiana. And this, can I move my slides? So this program is our arts education program, and it is for teachers. There are two components to the program. One is the Fellowship for Creative Teaching, and you have a handout in front of you, the one with the blue stripes, of all the teachers that were selected for the program this year. So this is a program where we do a competitive application. We select 20 teachers from all across the state, all different types of teachers. We've got elementary school teachers. You can see on your spreadsheet what they teach and what grade levels and what county they're in. Some people here, there's one teacher who's a German language teacher, someone who's teaching family and consumer sciences. We've got math teachers, algebra teachers, you know, all different kinds of folks in the cohort, and they applied because they wanted to bring creativity to their classroom. They're excited to do this work. And we are excited to help them do it. It's about a 10-month program they go through. We do a couple online learning sessions, and then we come together in person in July to really get hands-on with the artworks. So if you're a math teacher, it's likely you've never spent a lot of time. Some of them are surprisingly creative. There's like 3 tap dancers in the group, right? But likely you may not have ever done textile felt working, right? So we get them hands-on with artworks, and when I tell them, you know, we're gonna be doing visual arts, you're gonna probably think I'm gonna paint something. I'm gonna do oil painting or watercolor. No, what we're gonna do is we're going to do felt textiles, we're going to be doing comic book illustration, we're going to be doing all kinds of off the beaten path art forms. When I say we're gonna do theater workshops, we're not putting on a production of Cats. We don't have time for that, and they don't have time to do that with their students. What we're gonna do is teach them improv games. We're gonna teach them the theater activities that a theater professional might do to develop character or to develop a setting. And those are elements and small snippets and activities that a teacher can take right back to their classroom to engage with students. So we're giving them the tools that they need to incorporate more creativity and arts in their everyday teaching. So that when they come together in person in July, you know, we've got these 20 teachers and we've got all these guest speakers and artists doing hands-on things. We thought, well, while we're getting this together, why don't we make this a little bit of a bigger thing? So we invented the Summer Institute for Creative Teaching. We're gonna have 100 or so teachers, artists, and arts administrators coming together in Lebanon, Indiana, at Lebanon High School to go through this conference and do lots of hands-on arts experiences and what's called the arts integration strategy for teaching, where you take learning in the arts, activities in the arts, and you pair them with learning in other subject areas so that students are learning both simultaneously. And hopefully with all of this modeling and experiences and new understandings and skills, the teachers can take that right back to their classroom. So the teachers, after they do all this learning in the first half of the fellowship, they get to put it into action in the fall semester. They all receive a partnership. They get paired with an arts organization in their area of the state, which you'll see also on the spreadsheet. We listed the arts partners. A few of them are still TBA, but the arts partner receives the funding from the IAC and sends an artist into the classroom to work with that teacher. They co-plan a really fun curriculum project based on whatever the teacher and the students need using the art form. And then for 5 to 10 weeks, the artist will be there doing really great activities with the students. So that is a Fellowship for Creative Teaching and the Summer Institute for Creative Teaching. Here's the locations of all the teachers. We also have this map in your packet. I love the distribution of folks here. Oh, there we were on Zoom. We met in May, we met in June, and it's really fun. Please join us in Lebanon at the Summer Institute for Creative Teaching. There's opportunities for anyone to come by, swing by, drop in, check it out. On Thursday afternoon, we're doing some really fun field trips out into other communities. We'll be going in Lebanon, we'll be going out into the local community to see their arts organizations. Some of us will be going to Zionsville and some of us will be going to Thorntown. And one of the reasons specifically I picked these locations is I want to make sure the message is, no matter where you are in the state, there are arts happening. That people can say, well, yeah, of course, in Indianapolis, you can bring arts into the school. That's easy. But what we're doing is we're demonstrating everywhere. In Thorntown, Indiana, there's a really great place called Sugar Creek Art Center. And they've got like 50 local artists that come through that studio and show their art in the gallery, and they support students. And they had when I was there a month ago, they had the senior art show up in their studio, and so many resources in that one building. I want to demonstrate to teachers that all they need to do is kind of look out into their own community and find some great partnerships and connections. Here's some of the fun things we're doing. We're opening up with a performance from Epiphany African Dance Collective. We'll do, like I said, felt painting, improv games, and our poet laureate of the state will come and do a poetry writing workshop for teachers. So great, we have all the amazing assets and artists to draw from. Oh, here's some photos of past fall artist residencies. So this is the second year that we have done this program, and in the fall last year, upper left corner here is a group of high schoolers from Shelbyville, Indiana. Their partner teacher was the agriculture teacher. It was really fun, and they partnered with the organization Newfields in Indianapolis, and together they did ceramics where they made models of leaves and tree bark so they could do the tree identification project in ceramics. And so they were visiting Newfields in that picture. Upper right, this is with the Honeywell Foundation organization, and they partnered with a school in North Manchester, Indiana. And they had a community open house night where the students presented their work they had been doing throughout the whole residency, and that's in partnership with the whole school district in that community night. Bottom left is the South Bend Museum of Art, working with an elementary school in South Bend with visual arts. And here's a Columbus area high school doing a poetry open mic night. They put like sheets over the lamps to make them a little dark, and they brought in coffee and beanbag chairs so that the students could have a coffee house vibe for their poetry open mic night. So the outcomes for the fellowship are students in Indiana have access to creative approaches to learning. We know from our research, what we've been doing for about 10 years now, that this approach, where we combine creativity with other learning areas, provides students better access that provides them with success in the classroom, especially students who don't learn well with traditional learning models, right? Students learn in different ways, and so some of those students really thrive with this approach. So we want the students in Indiana to have access to this, and so they are excited, engaged, and successful in their classrooms. And so to do that, we support the teachers, right? The teachers can bring these opportunities. You know, if we were to give a grant to every school in the whole state, we still wouldn't reach all the students in the state and all of the teachers. It would just be immeasurable. But if we support a teacher to take those strategies back and use them themselves every day, we're going to ripple out a lot bigger impact. So our strategy is to support teachers to feel creatively confident, knowledgeable, and connected to the arts community. I want them to sustain their partnership. I want them to feel like, oh, I remember when I was in Thorntown, they had that art center, and I think we have an art center where we are. Maybe I could go over there and knock on the door and talk to them a little bit. So I want them to feel confident in reaching out to the arts community and create some lasting partnership potential. And definitely at this time, we want teachers to feel rejuvenated for being in this project. And after the first year, we got great reviews from the teachers that we were meeting that goal. That we want them to be excited about these new strategies, connected, and informed in the ways in which the arts can support state standards. And then lastly, I'm going to talk about out of school programs, right? So this is kind of an academic term, out of school programs that have to do with youth focused programs in the times when the school is not happening, right? So from 3 to 5 p.m. every day in the after school programs, and summertime when schools are not running in their full time. So those out of school times is the next focus that we're going to be doing in this arts learning portfolio of grants and programs and capacity building. We will be piloting a version of out of school time arts education grants with the Indiana Department of Education's 21st Century Community Learning Centers. This is a federally funded title of certain sites in the state that are already vetted by the DOE. They support students who are underserved, and they have high quality staff and programming and sites. So we know they're already vetted. We know they're serving underserved communities. We're going to be able to come alongside that program and infuse artists into each of those sites. So that will be coming. The full framework for that will be coming in September. So this is just a preview of the next phase of the arts learning work.
Good. Great. Any questions for Stephanie? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Kayla, you're up with the Regional Arts Partnership Consortium report.
Thank you. I will say we're all breathing a sigh of relief to have grant panels successfully completed, especially with the influx of new arts project support applicants this year. We're so thankful to the IAC team for helping us through the panels every step of the way. Thank you so much. We've been working hard to put panelist comments in the system by this coming Monday to provide this important feedback to all applicants this year. We're starting to review FY 24 arts project support and arts organization support final grant reports. And diligently sending reminders in conjunction with the IAC team in advance of the July 13th grant report deadline for FY 24. So I will say there was positive feedback across the board from the regional arts partner conversations with Neil. He was great to work with. In terms of the 2 potential courses of action, there were understandably mixed responses. So it seemed that partners with more capacity tended to lean toward keeping the existing model. And those with less capacity or less mission alignment tended to like the idea of having potentially 6 regions with 6 full-time regional partner positions. And so we know that these are just the initial conversations and appreciate the IAC team for taking the time and resources to undergo this process involving us, and look forward to continued involvement in this process and the conversations. Thank you.
Great. Kayla, I just hope, please convey to the other regional arts partners our gratitude for participating so openly in that process. Change is difficult, and we're asking all of you to stay alongside us as we navigate that. And so just if you could convey our appreciation for that, that would be great.
Yes, will do. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we do not have any consent agenda items that were moved to the full agenda. So we'll move past that and to the item for which Raina and Dave and I are most anxious about. The re-election of your officers for fiscal year 25. You have that slate in front of you. There's any discussion among commissioners?
I move we do it really quickly before they change their mind.
I'll second that.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Austin, will you please call the roll?
Absolutely. Azizi.
Aye.
Raina.
Aye.
Chad.
Aye.
Dave.
Aye.
Greg.
Aye.
Mark.
Aye.
Dave.
Aye.
Kelsey.
Aye.
Renee.
Aye.
Anne.
Aye.
Scott.
Aye.
Lori.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you all on behalf
you.
of your slate of
Yes,
officers. Much
yeah.
appreciated. Is there any old business or new business to come before the commission? Yes.
I'll just take 1 minute of your time. In front of you in your materials today, you had some stationery and the list, the names of 4 panelists for the Arts Project Support Program. Big thanks to Bryn for preparing these, but for those who are new, for the past couple of years, we have asked commissioners to write handwritten thank you notes to panelists from our grant system to help us and help our regional arts partners maintain those very important relationships. And so there are the names and addresses of 4 folks who paneled for APS, and we just ask that you convey the commission's thanks for them sharing their time and expertise to help ensure a strong public panel review. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to Bryn or myself. But thank you in advance for that.
Thank you.
I also have a very brief one. It was in the consent agenda, but just so you heard verbally as well, the committee assignments are up for the year. They'll stay largely the same, but if you have any activity or something that would preclude you from consistently attending the meetings, and the schedule is in your packet, please let me know and I'll pass that along to the chair and we will approve that if that is necessary.
We will take it under
We'll take it
consideration.
Wow.
For another year.
Straight to it.
That's right. You got the Banana Republic, right?
But yes, if you have anything that would preclude you from attending the meetings, it's something, let me know and we will take it under consideration. I don't do a lot of public meetings.
Okay, anything else?
Great.
Our next quarterly business meeting is.
Our next quarterly business meeting will be in Terre Haute on the date that is on your piece of paper. September 6th. September 6th. Should be on your calendar already. In Terre Haute. Looking forward to that.
It's been a long time since we've been in Terre Haute, so it'll be fun to be.
Yeah, I don't see not at all since my, in my
So we're
tenure.
excited.
Can we go to the Larry Bird Museum?
Well, we were
just chatting about that, so
I think that
we'll see what we can do.
Yes.
We'll see what we can do.
Yeah, and if it's not the official thing,
Yeah.
Thursday night, we have post
Yeah.
meeting
we'll
on
figure
Friday.
something
We
out.
can swing by. Okay,
Maybe.
I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Waiting all morning.
Do we have a second? All those, did we have a second?
No, no, no. one-
Nobody wants to leave.
Only Jake wants to.
We want you to play your
Can I
trumpet.
second my own?
Good try. So Greg has seconded.
Thank you, Greg.
We can take a verbal approval. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. We are adjourned as of 11:42. Great meeting. Thank you, everybody.
Yeah.